Hello, everybody. It's Mark Johnson at Guaranteed Rate, and today's weekend rate review is brought to you by Renovation Loans and HELOC Loans. I'll go over that at the end here. But after so many weeks of interest rates going up and up, I've got some good news for you. Last week, interest rates, indeed, they went up a little bit to over 7%. I think it was 9.6% last year, and that doesn't look good. But the good news is that on Wednesday, we started seeing interest rates come down. So here's the bond market right here, where rates, came down a huge amount on Wednesday, and then a little bit more yesterday. Today, it's pretty flat. Where we get our money from is the bond market, and you can see that it was a more dramatic increase in bonds, which in other words, when bonds go up, interest rates go down. It's pretty flat today. But that should bring interest rates back down below 7%, maybe, as late as Monday or Tuesday. So right now, I suggest floating. Let's take a look at the numbers. Now, the reason why we saw better inflation or better rates on Wednesday is because we got inflation numbers that were better than expected. The Fed was expecting, and the consensus was that interest rate or the consumer price index CPI would come in at 3.3%. In reality, it came in at 3.2%. And if you take out shelter and energy and some of these hotspots, you'll see that basically the month over month is 0.2%. In other words, at 2.3%. That's the core. So that's almost, it's getting really close to what the Federal Reserve is looking at. Shelter basically is still a huge problem. And then, you're looking at used cars, we're up just a little bit. And, airline fares have gone up. Those are the kind of things that have changed here. Now, another good indicator of what might happen is that we got some information from the a voting member whose name is Chris Wallace of the Federal Reserve. He is one of the 12 governors that will vote, and he might be the next Fed chairman. And so what he does is pretty important. People listen to him. And so basically what he is saying is that inflation is closer to the 2% a mark that the Federal Reserve is looking for, and it's coming in faster than what people think. He's telling us that the labor market is not overheating like some people think, and that the data that we're looking at is imputed, which means that the numbers that we're getting for some of these key figures that the bond market looks at and interest rate markets look at to either go up or to go down, the data is not actually correct, and it ends up being revised. So the numbers for December may be revised in February, just like those December numbers were revised, in January. And he feels like the Federal Reserve is still restrictive. Also, you might see more cuts in what they're looking at. Right now, he's thinking that we might have a cut as soon as March. And, the consensus has been that there's only going to be 2 cuts. And so what he is saying is that there could be 1 to 4 cuts next year. Hopefully there's more cuts than just 2 because that is also good for interest rates. Now, I told you that in this market, I think you still should lock in when you go under application. Remember, you can always have a one-time interest rate reduction, a renegotiation of rate. It has to drop more than 0.25%. But I might float for a couple of days if I were you, to see just if on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday interest rates came down. But it's still volatile out there, so I wouldn't wait too long. Now, I told you earlier that today's mortgage minute is brought to you by Renovation Loans or HELOC Loans. If you're thinking about doing some major renovations on your home, you might want to do a renovation loan. There's both conventional and FHA loans to do renovation loans. And these would be things that would be maybe, over 30, between 20, 30, 40, $50,000 or even more. Or you could just take out a HELOC loan. And if you go on and apply for a HELOC loan, you'll get an approval within minutes and an offer of several different kinds of options that you might have there. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.